And because we're never alone, that noise is inside. I can't listen well because of the noise that I have inside.
A message that is basically just a love letter to my alone time, and that is the art of solitude. Hello, my loves. Welcome back. I feel like I've always been a very independent person, but I feel like there's a difference between being independent and being alone versus intentional time for self-reflection and versus solitude. And I think solitude and intentional self-reflection really go hand in hand. And if you've watched my last episode on my journal tour and the art of self-reflection, then you'd know that self-reflection is something that I take very seriously, and I like to use the term intentional self-reflection. That is really one of the biggest components of growth, healing, and understanding the self, which I think everybody needs to go through. First of all, if you are scared of being alone, that is a huge problem. And it's probably one of the biggest things that you actually have control over that you can change that's holding you back from unlocking your greatest potential. Now, most people avoid solitude because it actually forces them into that self-reflection, and it may not be intentional at that point. It may actually be subconscious. And self-reflection comes in forms of that overthinking, coming to different realizations. And when your self-reflection is not intentional, when it's just the thoughts that are overthinking in your head, it's unproductive thought because it's provoking you, but you're not acting on those triggers and provocations. So the difference between that overthinking and letting your brain run versus intentional self-reflection is that during intentional self-reflection, you're actually taking the time to not only acknowledge the feelings, but to work through them and to come to different conclusions so that you can move forward and move past these things. It also helps you to recognize different patterns. And these thoughts that are going to come up in these moments of stillness, they can be very scary. And if you're uncomfortable, that's actually the first sign that growth is about to happen. So when these uncomfortable feelings arise, you actually want to hold on to them, work through them. You don't want to suppress them because then you're basically throwing away your potential and your growth if you're not overcoming those things that are starting to rise up, those emotions that are starting to rise up. If you're not overcoming those emotions that are starting to rise up, you're basically declining that ticket to growth.
Some of us are not good listeners because it's too noisy inside. So because there's so much noise inside, noise means what? Misunderstood emotions. So you have to understand yourself first. But here's the deal. All we do in the moments of silence, scroll, watch, scroll, watch. We're never alone with ourselves.
Now, what's the difference between isolation and chosen solitude? Isolation is a toxic reaction and a trauma response. So isolation can look like avoiding going out, declining plans with friends, canceling plans, postponing errands, just not even getting out of the house sometimes, really just going and doing what you have to do, coming home and isolating yourself from the world, your friends, and your family. It can even look like not responding to text messages. Isolation is reactive, and it's not necessarily a chosen reaction. It's a response to those traumas and triggers that allows you to just disconnect and not face them head on. And while it seems like the easier path, and in the moment you might feel like isolation is the solution because you actually don't know how to deal with these problems or these triggers. But again, it's just going to allow you to disconnect, suppress, and continue to act without processing. Solitude is when you are intentional with your environment and your time. And it's when you choose yourself for the purpose of recharging, growth, and reflection. It's not so that you can just hide in your little bubble and pretend that things are not happening. Pretend that the emotions you're feeling are invalid. Pretending that if you ignore it, it's just going to go away. And maybe it will go away for a little bit of time, but it's bound to come back. So the longer that you put off these thoughts and this time for reflecting on everything that's building up inside, the longer it's going to take you to get to a better place. So that's why over here, us girlies are choosing intentional self-reflection. I just love the term because I feel like it encapsulates solitude and reflection perfectly. It's a component of your alone time that is essential to your personal development journey, because things truly change when you write down all those thoughts that are popping up in your head, when you turn the intangible in your mind into tangible on paper. So we're going to reframe things. Solitude is an investment in self-awareness and in peace. Taking intentional time for self-reflection isn't just an act of self-care or mindfulness. It's not just for the purpose of de-stressing. It's a long-term investment. Let me further explain this investment to you. Without reflection, your mind is cluttered. It's unorganized, and because of this disorganization in your mind, you're not going to be able to react intentionally. You're going to be reacting spontaneously without reflection. Now, why is this damaging? It's okay to go with the flow, right? Of course, but to an extent, because it becomes dangerous to just go with the flow if you're not taking time to process and understand your past mistakes, as well as the purpose behind them. Because then when you're just going with the flow, with that disorganized mind, you're going to continue patterns. And some of those patterns are unhealthy and they're not contributing to your growth, which you know. Therefore, practicing self-reflection will not only solve your current problems, but you're preventing the same problems from repeating themselves in that cycle and showing up again in the next season. I made myself matcha today. Oh my god. But I made the mistake of getting sugar-free syrup, and I realized sugar-free doesn't actually mean healthier, so I should have just got the regular syrup, because this literally tastes disgusting. But I'm still gonna drink it because matcha, the ceremonial grade one, has its health benefits, so I'm still chugging this. Anyways, back to the topic. So yes, through identifying root causes, recognizing triggers, and analyzing patterns, this investment is going to sharpen your intuition, it's going to build your emotional intelligence, and you're going to be able to move forward with clarity, which is probably something that you're lacking if you feel like you're going into these phases of reactive isolation, where the isolation is just your second nature. We really want to shift that from that toxic reaction into an intentional time for yourself, for your healing, and for your growth. And even just watching this video right now means that you are taking the time and the effort and making that intention to take that next step. Now, here's the other thing. You don't want to get solitude mixed up with just alone time, because there's importance in sitting alone with your thoughts without distraction. And in our alone time, when we think we're resting, when we're actually just scrolling on our phones or binge watching TV, that's actually just a distraction. And a lot of the time we consider sitting in bed or sitting on the couch on our phones as rest, but that's not even true rest. And sometimes we actually feel anxious when we're resting because we don't feel like we're accomplishing anything. We don't feel like we're being productive. And so that rest that we're taking is actually sending our body into that stress feedback loop, which is unhealthy and just causes anxiety. And these feelings can only be acknowledged when you take that intentional time. You're going to recognize that, wow, why am I stressed? What are these emotions that I need to sit with for a while? Now, also, aside from just reflecting and working through things, I think that your alone time also helps you to ground yourself and to find your purpose.
Be like, yo, Sheikh, you was just talking about isolation and lonely. Shaitan loves that. Now you're talking about solitude. See, there's a difference. One is a chosen time to myself so that I can know myself better. The other is when I want company, I'm surrounded by people, I don't feel connected. I don't feel like I belong in any room. I don't feel like I'm close to anyone.
When you begin to appreciate your solitude, your time alone, your time with yourself in the space that you've created, it becomes easier to shift out of that scarcity mindset. Now, you have to stick with me here and listen till the end to actually have this all make sense. But recently, I've acknowledged that I value delusion over desperation. I've spoken about the scarcity mindset where you basically feel like there's not enough to go around. And when you feel like there's not enough to go around, you're just living very attached to the things around you and attached to certain ideas as well. So when you spend this time alone, that's so intentional, you'll be able to focus on your priorities and really dig down on what you see for your future. Since you now will know your priorities, you'll have more focus on those priorities and have less desperation to cling on to those things that don't align with those priorities. You'll be able to detach more from those things that don't serve you and serve the future that you envision for yourself. Also, when you become so priority oriented, it becomes easier to remove that male centration, the male centered mindset, because you feel fulfilled with yourself. You feel fulfilled with where you're going and with your journey. So that's why self-reflection is going to lead you to finding your true purpose. When you're focused on your true purpose, you're not going to just cling on to whatever opportunities you're getting. You're going to act in alignment with that purpose that you have in mind. So you need to crack down on your vision so that it becomes easier to reject things that don't align with it. Recognize that you don't need to rush to accept the first opportunities that come to you. You trust that God will give you what you desire. You just need patience, sabr, and complete trust in God. So I want this to be your sign to push past that fear of being alone. Because if you sit with those uncomfortable emotions, those uncomfortable feelings for a little while, it will be so pivotal to your growth and to your journey. And that fear that you feel when those thoughts and emotions arise, you need to recognize that that discomfort is your invite. And by disregarding those uncomfortable feelings, you are rejecting that invite to your full potential. So you need to accept that invitation outside of your comfort zone, because it might not come around for a while if you reject it now. And I promise you, it's going to get you somewhere. Everybody has a story, everybody has a journey, and part of that journey has to be feeling the discomfort. And if you choose to ignore the discomfort, your story's going to be hella boring. That's all I'm saying. Now, before we go, I'm just going to quickly share how I spend my intentional time with myself. So, healthy ways of spending time with yourself could look like going on a solo date. I love a good solo date. You know, whether it's going to a cafe to journal, going on a little walk, trying a new food place on my own, driving to a new city to explore, even just going shopping, a little shopping date. There's a lot of things that you can do with yourself, but I really suggest taking yourself on a solo date, getting that journal out, and just really enjoying your own presence, because there's so much power in the self-love that is cultivated during your alone time, during your moments of solitude. And if you're in an era of your life where you feel kind of alone, then it's the perfect time to really make that loneliness intentional. You need to work with what's given to you. You need to play the cards that you were dealt to the best of your abilities so you can win that game, girl, okay? This is your sign to take that discomfort as an invite. So with that being said, if you're inspired to take yourself on a solo date to start your intentional self-reflection, you need to leave a little like down below, comment, let me know what you're gonna do. And I'm challenging you, okay? This week, you're gonna do something rooted in that solitude and intentional reflection. And don't forget to subscribe if you made it to the end of this video. You're literally part of the girlhood now, okay? This is sisterhood. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Lifestyle by Zara.